All the rolling go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today, before we start the show, I would like to bring up some business things that have kind of been on my mind so that you can know where to get more Where Am I to Go. First off, I'd like to talk about the Facebook page at Where Am I to Go podcast. It's on Facebook, and we've been posting some wonderful pictures of some of the places that we've been and some of the adventures that we've had. Not everything that we go and do is made into a podcast, and so we take pictures at different places and post those pictures so that you guys can enjoy some of the different places we've been. Also, I really am interested in listener feedback. I have an email address at whereamiitogopodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is whereamiitogopodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear some of the listeners' comments and some of their ideas of places that might be interesting to visit and go and do.
Today we're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I've been in Tennessee for the last 3 days. Beautiful state. The greenery and the rolling hills and the trees are all coming into bloom and getting their leaves, and just a real pretty time. This has been a real enjoyable visit here to Tennessee. First time I've ever been to Tennessee. But anyway, today we are at the Recovery Museum in Chattanooga. Now this may not be what you guys are thinking. This is not drug rehab or anything like that. This is automobile recovery. This is a tow truck, automotive, recovering from bad accidents or something like that. And we are here with Niall. He is going to take us through the museum. And hello, Niall.
Hi, how you doing?
So tell me just a little bit about what we're going to see here. This museum, I was thinking, was just going to be a little tiny display or something, but this is really a nice gift shop. And I'm assuming you guys have a towing company?
No, we don't. We're not owned by any kind of towing company. We don't run a towing company. We're a member-owned museum that is supported primarily by the towing and recovery industry. A lot of the trucks that we have in here have been donated to us or are on loan from different companies throughout the country. And they're all antique vehicles or vehicles of note, so they're important for either the history or something along those lines. But we were founded in 1986 by a group called the Friends of Towing. It was a group of towers that got together that wanted to find a place to honor the industry and the people that work within it, because it's a thankless job for a lot of them, and they work very hard to keep our roads clear.
And I'll bet it's a dangerous job.
Extremely dangerous.
I can't even imagine being out on the side of the highway when cars are passing you by at 75 miles an hour and not moving over. And
in fact, I'll start this by talking about our Wall of the Fallen, which is out front. It's our memorial wall for the tow truck drivers that get killed every year. One tow truck driver is killed every 6 to 10 days on U.S. highways.
Really?
And it's usually by, various issues with the drunk driving, drivers just not getting over in their lane. They're just out doing their work and they get sideswiped. They get hit by traffic. They get hit by people who aren't paying attention, that are on their phone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in a lot of cases, it leaves these families of these people just, left kind of high and dry. Their breadwinner is now gone.
Oh, yeah.
And fortunately, we have a thing called the Survivor Fund, which also works with these towing companies and these people. They reach out to these families, and when they lose a driver or a person in the line of service, they will have a cash payout to help the families recover.
Can normal people just donate to this fund?
Yes, absolutely.
Or is that part of the insurance that comes along with what drivers?
It's not an insurance policy. It's something that's just done as a part of the museum organization for towing families that are trying to recover from those awful situations. But the Wall of the Fallen out front is our memorial wall. So every year we add more names to the wall for people that submit to have their names added out there for the different criteria for if they're killed on the side of the road. And so we have an event every year where they come out and the families get to essentially have an additional memorial service on top of the one they probably have with their families, so that we get to honor their memory.
And how many names are out there right now?
Quite a few. It's several hundred. I don't remember off the top of my head how many are out there, but it's a lot. And we've been doing it since 2006.
Okay.
So it's been a lot of names since then.
And what we're looking at when we look at this, you've got a big concrete wall that's square, and it's probably what, 50 foot wide and 150 foot long?
Roughly, yeah.
And right in the middle, you've got a sculpture of a guy that's hanging onto a tow hook and kneeling down like what would be on the side of a bridge or something like that, helping somebody out of a pond that they have underneath, holding a little child. And you've got the back end, back corner of a pickup that's been submersed.
Mm-hmm. And it's an imagery of what the recovery industry stands for. It's for people that are, they're going out there, and it's a Samaritan industry. They're out to help people, and that's really what it boils down to. But yeah, that's pretty much how I'll talk about where we start with that, because you talk about how dangerous it is, and that's absolutely, front and center with how we handle.
And you said one every 16 days?
6 to 10 days.
6 to 10 days. That is just amazing to think that there's. I mean, that's a lot of people.
And it's a lot of square mileage in this country, and a lot of people. So it's a lot more often than it should be.
Oh.
And that's why we're a big proponent of the Slow Down, Move Over campaign with governments, state governments all over the country, to make sure that motorists know to slow down and move over. See the yellow lights, you move. Get out of slow down and get away from them where they're trying to do their work.
Well, it's a good idea, even if it's just the stranded motorist on the side of the road trying to change a tire. It's just a courtesy thing to get yourself over.
Absolutely. But now we'll get into the museum portion of the museum. So up front here, we've got our 1929 Packard here. This was donated by the Graziano family of Chicago. This was originally owned by the Boston Globe. It was actually a limousine.
I was going to say, it's a beautiful truck.
They cut off the back and turned it into a tow truck, because at the time there weren't a lot of vehicles that had an engine big enough to actually perform recoveries that had enough horsepower. This actually has a straight 8 in it. So that was just kind of their means to have a vehicle that just could pull most vehicles of the time up and tow them off. That's also, this has actually never actually seen service, but it's been on display, it's been in parades, it's been on that kind of thing. But for all intents and purposes, it would have been very much like what they would have had at the time.
Very nicely restored,
absolutely.
Or maybe it hasn't been restored. This may be the way that it.
It was. I think it's been worked on a few times, but nothing of note. But yeah, it's essentially mint.
And if you want to see pictures of some of this, when this podcast airs, we will have pictures that go along so that you can see some of these cars or trucks, these tow trucks.
Now in here, this is our theater. Over on the left, we've got for the people that I was talking about, the Friends of Towing that helped get the museum started. We've got a lot of memorabilia from them, so essentially the museum started off on the back of a truck, and it traveled around the country for many years.
Okay, so now was this the way that you hauled it?
Yes.
Okay, so they had a semi-type tow truck towing a trailer with the towing apparatus that they would use to tow it off the
correct
another semi or something, and they've got the semi trailer being towed by the tow truck with Hall of Fame and Museum written on the side of it.
Correct.
That's a cool picture. That had to have been impressive going down the road. I mean, people
I'm sure it caught a lot of people's eyes, absolutely. And that's kind of how it got started. That group of individuals got it started that way, and it would travel around the country to different shows and whatnot, and got its name out there. Eventually, they needed to settle down somewhere, and they settled downtown in Chattanooga, still on Broad Street, just further down from where we are now. And they picked Chattanooga because the tow truck was invented in Chattanooga. That's why the museum's here.
And when was that?
In 1913.
Really? Mm-hmm. I would have thought that they've had automobiles since the late 1800s, I would have thought that somebody would have come up with the idea to make $1 or $2 towing some of those old cars.
Right?
Just changing the tires for those guys.
But that's why they settled here, and then the museum was downtown for about 10 years or so, and they kind of outgrew the space that they had downtown, and we eventually moved to where we are now. So we've got this larger building for the majority of our trucks, and we've settled in here for the duration now, and it was a good idea, it was a good move, and everything has worked out great for us here because we're right on the tourist route up to Rock City, Ruby Falls, and all that up on the mountain. That's a big tourist attraction. But yeah, that's really it. That's all that's going in here, and that wall is primarily for the people that got everything started, and just in memory of them, or to honor their
And is that what
dedication.
the video shows? Is basically how
that and how the tow truck got started.
Okay.
So we come on in here. This is the main gallery.
Wow.
So on our left here, you've got our 1913 Locomobile. Now the Locomobile is one of those brands of vehicles that was pre-assembly line industry,
Right.
an automobile. So this
Custom made.
This was put together by hand at the time. So that was before Ford came up with his plan for a assembly line and all that.
This is a beautiful truck too. Now, was this made as a truck?
This was made as a truck, as far as I'm aware. Now, on the back is the 485, which was the first tow truck boom that was invented by Ernest Holmes Sr. in 1913. He started working on it then. The story goes, as he got started, he had bought a automobile shop here in downtown Chattanooga, and he got called out one day to help a friend who had turned over in the creek, the Chickamauga Creek. Well, he grabbed 12 guys and went out there and spent the entire day trying to pull one vehicle up out of the creek.
Wow.
And he went back to his shop and he said, "We got to figure out a better way to do this. This is not going to work." So he put his engineering know-how to work, and he came up with the twin boom wrecker, which became the primary means for recoveries for decades, until now, where we're in hydraulic wreckers and all that, but that's another story altogether. But he invented the original tow truck here in Chattanooga.
Wow. And this truck, or this towing apparatus that's on the back, has cables kind of hanging out over everywhere, a couple of winches, and I'm assuming that they had big handles to turn that gear
Correct.
with
Everything
in
was
order to
hand crank, absolutely. And what they would do, and why it's a twin boom, is that they would put the stability down, and they would swing one boom out and tie it to something to keep the truck from turning over, and then put the other boom out to pull whatever vehicle it was that they needed to recover, so that it would stay stable.
So the truck wouldn't roll sideways because they had the booms pulling from the side to bring them out of a ravine or whatever.
To establish stability for the truck so that it wouldn't go anywhere, and they were able to get enough power to get whatever it was. It's a very complicated, very ingenious way to handle it as a series of levers. It's fantastic.
Wow. That's impressive.
And over here we've got our 1913 Cadillac. This is actually a replica of the original tow truck. So this would have been an exact replica of what he first created as his, I guess, prototype that he took out onto the road and started recovering with in the beginning.
And again, this one here was probably a car that they put a tow bed on.
Correct. This one was actually put together much later. This was meant to be a truck that was meant to honor his legacy and all of that. So this is a replica, but that would have been essentially what he did. Yes, he would have just attached this to the back of an older Cadillac vehicle like that. Because again, like I said, with the Packard, these vehicles had enough power to actually do what he needed them to do.
That is cool. Did you get some really good pictures of this twin boom setup? I will. So that people can understand, you've got this pod that comes down right in front of the back wheel that goes into the ground to stabilize things. And then, like he said, you had twin booms coming out the back that you could rotate out and tie off to something so that the truck wouldn't tip over when you were bringing somebody out of the ditch and pulling them towards like the passenger door or
Correct.
the driver's door. I'm sure that it's the same on either side. And then once you got them out, you were able to attach some cables and pick up the front end of the car and tow it on in.
Correct. You got it.
Just I've never seen that type of a system.
And you don't realize how much engineering know-how would go into something like this until you start looking at all the series of cables and the way he had it set up. The man was not terribly well learned. He had some engineering background, but he was just a guy that said, here's a problem and I'm going to fix it.
Well, and the thing that's cool about this setup is even though you've got a cable coming out the other side from where you're pulling to tie off to, your truck isn't sitting crossways in the middle of the road.
Right.
While you're trying to pull somebody out of a ditch or whatever, to where you're not going to be hit broadside. People could still get around you, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Now over here we've got our Holmes Model 110. So on the left here on the Locomobile is the 485, which would have been the first production model that his company put out that became predominantly, the one that was all over the place. But the 110 was basically the cheaper version of that. This would also be mounted on the back of another truck. And they were always numbered based on the cost.
Okay.
So the 485 was listed as a 485 because it cost $485. The Model 110 cost $110 at the time.
You can see the difference between the amount of gearing that you have for leverage and everything else versus just a single cable, pretty basic winch.
Right, exactly.
Basically like a big boat winch.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now over here we've got our 1935 Ford, I forget the name of the 1-ton. And it's equipped with a Weaver auto crane on the back. This has got a V8 in it because that was predominant for the time for Ford.
The old flathead.
And they were very proud of that because it was a big deal at the time. And Weaver was one of the early competitors to Holmes and the twin boom and the original invention. They were also very popular because they were a chain-based system that was what you think of when you think of tow truck. You think of the single boom that comes out the back with the hook, even though that was not the most common of the time.
And it's got the bed that sweeps back, kind of rounded. This is a beautiful truck.
Absolutely.
Oh man, it's a beige color and dark brown, and the chrome on it, the chrome chain. It's
always been one of my personal favorites in our gallery.
You guys have done such a nice job with these restorations, and the way these things look is just unbelievable.
Another big highlight in here is our 1929 Chrysler. This is also donated by the Graziano family of Chicago, same as the ones up front with the Packard. This was actually put together by that family, essentially from a lot of pieces, and constructed this 1929 to be a sort of show car for their company, O'Hare Trucking Service in Chicago.
Wow. You've got a little light up on top where the flashing light would be. It's red lens and it says service car on the center. That's got to be a hard piece to find.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
a lot of love and care was put into this one for sure.
Then you've got this Chevrolet cab over.
Yep, and this is just kind of a standard set. Oh, get shocked. It's wintertime, right? This is just kind of a standard setup from the time. This was donated to us by Roosevelt's Garage out of New York. Wonderful people. And again, with the twin boom setup. This was obviously a little bit later model. You can see the changes and improvements that were done to the back. It made it a little bit more compact, a little bit more user-friendly, I would suppose.
And this one's really large as far as the size of it.
It's
quite a bit bigger than what the other ones are. And what year is this?
This one, I actually don't remember off the top of my head.
We're going to step over here. It's 1948. 1948. I was going to take a look.
I was going to say early 50s, but I couldn't remember off the top of my head. Then over here we've got another Rogner's truck. This is the 1970 Coney. This was actually a Japanese tow truck. As you can tell, it's a lot smaller than the other ones we have.
Well, it looks a lot like those little Japanese trucks that you see running around with the little tiny tires, and they were really popular, 15 years ago?
Yeah, pretty much. It's essentially the same thing.
Little two-cylinder engine, it says.
Yep, and it was designed for the streets of in Japan, where things are a lot smaller as far as that goes, because they don't have a lot of vehicles on the roads. They have a lot of public transportation, so it's a different setup for them. So that's just a nice little neat one we have in here. And this is one we allow kids and families to get in and take a picture. It just becomes, it's a little fun truck.
It is. It's cute.
On the flip side of that, we go from our smallest truck to our largest truck.
And this thing's a monster.
This is the 1961 auto car, and it has the Holmes W70 on it. Now, the interesting story about this one is that this is the only surviving W70 there is. There were only 4 made in the early 60s. The military was interested in a large wrecker, and they were sent to the testing ground in Maryland, 4 of them, and the military ended up not going with it, and they were all thought to be scrapped. It was eventually found and restored, and that's how we ended up with it. The family that restored it decided to put it on loan with us.
Now, just to give you an idea how big this is, it says the W70 is a 70-ton unit manufactured in the early 50s for a military project that didn't meet the military's expectations. So this unit is huge.
Absolutely.
And it looks like your early 60s semi-truck,
right,
with dual axles in the back and this monster tow apparatus.
And this was essentially a precursor to what you see a lot nowadays. You see on the side of the road those big rotator trucks. This would have been essentially the granddaddy of those trucks, because this was before they had really moved into hydraulics. So this was still all cable and chain, just massive cable and chain.
But everything was automatic on it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. No hand crank with this one.
I was going to say, yeah.
This is another very popular truck of ours. It's the world's fastest wrecker. This is actually a mid-70s Silverado with a, I can't remember the size of the engine. Oh, Lord. A very large cubic engine. And it was raced on the Talladega Speedway in the late 70s, and it set the world record for a tow truck on a raceway.
Wow. And that was 109.33 miles an hour.
Right. The average speed was 109.33. And during the straightaways, it got up to 130.
Really?
Now, to give you an idea, these trucks are not light. They are quite heavy, and for a truck of this size to get to that kind of speed is an impressive feat. And in fact, during the race itself, or the testing, or whatever you want to call it, the rear tires actually began to disintegrate because of the weight when they were on the racetrack trying to get it to go that fast. They ended up having to put more tires on it.
Now, this is just your standard what looks like the run-of-the-mill mid-70s square body Chevrolet pickup.
It was tuned obviously for the racetrack itself, because this was at the time the Holmes companies attempted a large publicity event, to draw attention to their high power 440, which is on the back. So that's it's just a wonderful truck. This is one of our most popular.
And this one here you have on your website.
Yes.
I saw that the light came in such a way on that picture that you couldn't see what the average speed was. So I was going, did that say 330 miles an hour? But it was the average speed was 109. That's still really hauling for a record.
Absolutely.
But they were trying. Did they actually use this one with recovering cars off of the track?
This is pretty much a publicity. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now this one here, you want to talk about one that saw a lot of use in action. This is our World War II wrecker. It's a Diamond T, early 1940s. This actually saw action in Normandy. It was part of the Red Ball Express when they landed in Normandy and traveled throughout France into Belgium. The truck was actually left over there at the time, and it was eventually found, restored, and then sent back overseas to us. Wow. It is actually one of the trucks that doesn't run. Every truck we have in this collection runs, except for this one, because there's some damage to it because of the war. So
But it looks nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody would
no,
ever,
no, it's a war hero. That's
it's cool. Yeah, and it's a 6x6, or what everybody called the 6x6. Was this here the designated CC? Oh, now I can't. I just had it in my head. CCW. Anyway, it was the World War II.
So in
6x6.
In the 1940s, as a lot of industries were, they were the Holmes Company here in Chattanooga was commissioned by the government to produce wreckers, and they were told, "Hey, we need these. Shut down everything else. Make wreckers for us." And this was the primary one that they made for the war effort. Several thousand were made right here in Chattanooga. But this is one of the ones that the W45 became kind of a legendary figure in the towing industry as far as its usage. It was a fantastic design, and like I said, it's basically a war hero.
That's cool. CCKW is what I think they were called. Okay. The World War II 6x6s.
And here's the plate with that, a little bit more information. But no, this is
it's a cool looking truck.
It absolutely is. This has always been one of our most popular just because of its history, and another one of my personal favorites.
Wow. This is really cool. And then here we've got
This is a 1974 Ford truck with a cradle snatcher on the back. This was an early model of what was called a Vulcan cradle snatcher. So this was meant to come up behind or like in front of a car and would have essentially a harness that would fit up. Yeah. And that's what this was for. And you can see there's a picture
mostly
right
for
here.
front wheel drive vehicles?
Correct.
And this would latch underneath the tires and hook onto the tires.
And then pull it up and then away you'd go. Supposed to meant to be a very modular, very quick system.
And then you had two sets of smaller wheels that look like you put your back tires in that, so if the axle was froze up or something, you'd be able to pull it back on in. Yeah, this is what I remember seeing when I was younger, the
I gotcha.
tow truck coming on out and slinging the car by the front end and dragging it back.
This here is our 1995 Jourdan prototype. This is donated to us by the Jourdan company, which you've probably seen their name on equipment on the side of the road. They're still, they're very well known for rollback tow trucks, which unfortunately we don't have one right now, but we're working on that. Anyway, this is a composite body, making it significantly lighter, and that was kind of the innovation at the time. And it was donated to us because it was meant to be such a big innovation at the time. This is essentially the prototype that they were working with in the early 90s to get their trucks designed in such a way.
And again, this one has the cab and everything that's more of the semi-style cab or the big freight truck. And
so this would have been for larger jobs.
Apparatus on the back.
All right, now over here we have got our 1947 GMC cab over. This one's called Bubble Nose. This is probably the most popular with the kids, honestly. The name usually does it because Bubble Nose. It's a fun name.
Now, when we say cab over, what that means is that it's got a real short front end, and the cab sits over the engine and transmission. Well, we mentioned cab over once before, but all of that sits kind of in between the seats or underneath the seats.
Correct.
And so it's got a real short, stubby nose. And this truck's it is cute because it's not real long. Right,
it's not. And the towing apparatus on it is custom. The gentleman that owned it, his name was George Lancer, out of Belgium, Wisconsin. And the family that, he's passed since he donated it our way, but the family's still very much involved with the museum. Wonderful people. And it's just one of our most popular trucks. It's a great little truck.
This painted orange and white, again, nicely restored. Everything in here is very nicely restored. You don't have anything that looks like it's seen service.
No. Well, I mean, some of them have seen service, but the restorations on them, you would never know the difference.
Yeah.
This right here is our Broad and James Graham Brothers tow truck. Now, this truck, when the Dodge company was getting started, there was a bit of a legal battle on how that was all going to happen. So the Graham brothers were part of that organization, so they were part of Dodge. They broke off and made their own company to make trucks. So this is one of very, very few surviving Graham Brothers trucks from the late 20s.
Okay.
With a standard boom on the back here we've got. It's just such a rarity. We've had people come in here just looking specifically for this because you can't find it anywhere.
Well, I was going to say, it's got the old, okay, now we're talking 1926. Dodge Brothers is what Dodge was called at the time. Had these really cool little hubcaps that are maybe 2.5, 3 inches round, and it had a DB in the middle. Well, this one here, because it's Graham Brothers, has the GB in the middle. And it's just a little bearing nut cap that screws on there.
Yeah, and I imagine at the time would have been a little jab at their...
They both look exactly the same, other than the DB and the GB.
Right.
And yeah, those little hubcaps are, I think, are really cool.
Over here on our left, we've got our 1926 Ford Model TT. This is a very common truck. Obviously, this was, Ford's pride and joy was the Model T and the Model TT. These trucks and cars were all over the roads. And it's got a nice wooden bed in the back with a manly crane that's completely restored. Another one of my personal favorites out of this collection, just because it was more of a common truck that you would have seen all over the place throughout the late teens through the 20s, because it was affordable for your common guy, and it did a good job.
And it doesn't have that double boom system like what we talked earlier. It just has a single hook. And it's bolted down to the frame in the bed. But beautiful truck again. Horseless carriages on the back, towing horseless carriages. I'll bet they didn't pass up an opportunity to get one that was pulled by a horse that was mired either.
These two trucks over here are also pretty interesting trucks. So they're both Chevrolets. We have a 29 and then the 40. One has the 515 double twin boom on the back. So this was more similar to the Chevrolet Cabover we talked about before. So that was a similar model to that. More compact system, a bit easier to mount on trucks, et cetera, with plenty of power. But just, again, they're just beautiful trucks that were really well restored, very well loved by their owners, and we were just happy to have them in our gallery.
Oh, I can see why. Yeah, the website shows a couple of different vehicles is all, and like I said, I'm just impressed and in awe. It's definitely well worth the stop. And then we've got a whole wall here with a lot of your Matchbox cars that had booms on them for towing, and bigger ones. Some of these are, 18, 20 inches long?
At least.
Just all kinds of different toys, little kids' trucks, all of that. That one there had to have been like a 90s. It's plastic and looks like a kid could even sit on it and push it around. On down to where you've got some of the old Tootsie Toy type trucks that are just really, really neat. All these toys. A Tonka Jeep with a tow apparatus in the back. Just, yeah.
So this collection is considered the world's largest collection of toy tow trucks. Actually, most of this collection was donated by one individual. So,
really?
So cases about 6 through 14 were donated by one guy.
By one guy.
And in fact, from what I understand, there's actually more. He has since passed, but I believe his family still has quite a few of those still. He was a serious collector.
Yes, he was. And there's some really cool wooden carved ones that are just really unbelievable, the detail and stuff in some of these wood carvings. This is really, really neat. And then you've got a couple of uniforms over here.
So for the Holmes Company, they had, obviously they had salesmen. They needed to get out there and sell these tow booms that would be put on the back of trucks. And this was a salesman's jacket over here. It was a long blue jacket that would look like it would be working in a garage, but this was what they would wear when they would go out for sales, because that's where they would often go. They would go to these garages and these guys that trying to sell equipment to, so they would fit right in.
Right.
And they would carry these bags with their salesman stuff in it, and yeah, and we've got a couple racing jackets in here because obviously, even with Daytona and Indianapolis and whatever, there's a wreck. You got to get a tow truck out there and get it off the.
Right.
So they were very involved with the racing industry and all that. So that's really what we've got in this case that we're very proud of.
Cool. And then you've got another gallery down here.
Yes, we do.
Well, as we're walking on down, let's take a quick break.
Now coming down here, this is what we call Heritage Hall. This is for pictures that are donated to us from different companies and different from over the lifespan of the museum. So somewhere we can post stuff that may have personal significance or company significance to a lot of these companies that support us. And we are happy to do this for them because they may not have any specific historical significance, but they're important to the people that support us, and we're happy to be able to display them for them.
It looks to me like there's some pretty cool pictures here. You've got one of a guy pulling an old car out of a ditch with the side booms, like what you were talking. There's a guy up here with a Model A, it looks like, that broke a bridge. Not broke down on a bridge, broke a bridge that's in the process of getting towed out. You've got a picture down here, it looked like somebody's picking up a cement truck with their tow truck.
Yep.
And I mean picking up the cement truck. The whole truck is balanced, it looks like, and the tow truck is picking it up. You've got one with a helicopter cabin on it. I don't know what the significance of that is, but
I believe that was actually, this one here is part of the monorail they had going around Disney.
Oh.
So that was actually one of the fronts of the monorail.
Oh, so it's not a helicopter.
No.
It sure looks like it.
It does. It really does.
It does. And just a lot of neat old pictures of tow trucks. And then here's one. Has that got a... No, that's not a DeLorean, but
that's a Lamborghini on that one.
Lamborghini on the back.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, no, the one next
This
to it.
one here, I'm not sure.
Anyway, it almost looked like a DeLorean when I first saw it, but...
This is one of our newest displays we have in here.
Wow.
Because we had a collection of gas pumps that we had displayed in the museum, but they were kind of scattered all over the place, and people didn't really get a chance to enjoy it. So we gathered them up down here and got all of our gas station stuff together, because essentially a lot of these tow trucks were operating out of gas stations or service stations.
Right.
And
that's what they called them back in the day, was a service station.
Absolutely.
You took your car in there and got it serviced.
And that's why we've got these all gathered down here, and we've got some pictures from different service stations where these trucks would be parked out front and people would get towed to them. So it's just a nice little display of our gas pumps that we have and some antique equipment.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of them with little round glass globes on top that are pretty cool. You've got one from Signal Gas, Mobil Gas, Poly Gas, another one from Mobil, and another Fire Chief Texaco.
Now, the Poly Gas one is one of the ones we're all proud of everything we have here, but we're very proud of this one because it's a very rare gas pump. It was a small company out in the Northwest in Oregon and Washington, so there weren't a lot of surviving Poly Gas pumps. So this is one of very few.
And the Poly gas pump is kind of cool. It's got a parrot sitting on a perch with a yellow banner that comes across and it says Poly Gas. So Poly want a gas pump.
All right, this is our downstairs gallery, which we just recently opened. We used to have events down here, but we were in the need of growing into some more space down here. We've got a little bit of empty space down here at the moment. We're working on getting some more trucks added to our collection, so a little bit of room for us to grow. This here is a model of that truck there on that picture. So this was actually made out of a lawnmower by a gentleman out of South Carolina that it was donated to us to look just like the 6080 that he had in that picture with the rollback.
And the picture that he's showing, it's an old picture. It's got probably what, a 1920
I don't know.
Maybe a 1920 Mac or something. It's a bigger truck, and it's pulling onto its drop bed with a cable, an old C cab farm truck.
So this would
That would have
essentially,
been maybe a 1-ton truck.
as most people would say, a lot of tow trucks nowadays are rollback, so you'll
Right.
see them out on the side of the road. This would have been a granddaddy version of that. They didn't become very popular until very recently because hydraulics became very accessible, because at the time that wasn't a very practical way to do things until
Right.
you had hydraulics. Because of moving the bed and cables, it was not practical for them. But this little model here is one of our little popular things. The kids love to get in it and take pictures, and I just love that it's made out of a lawnmower.
Yeah, and it's so cool that you've got some interactive stuff for kids when they come. I mean, I can't imagine a young boy not being excited to see this just because of the equipment and the mechanics and stuff. And I'm not taking anything away from little girls, but I know my sister wouldn't have been nearly as interested in this as what I am. This is just intriguing.
Over here, we've got our collection of towing devices, garage, and shop equipment. So in this picture, we have what would have been the Ernest Holmes Company's display area over here in Chattanooga. So when people would come in, they were looking to buy equipment, this is what they would have had on display. And we have some of the items that are in this picture, such as the lift-a-car jack here. And you'll probably recognize, I talked about it earlier, the 110 that we have upstairs.
Right.
There's that, and then the twin booms, the 485, and I think it's a 320. I'm not sure. It was an older one. It was somewhere in between the 110 and the 485.
So once he started making these things, he became kind of a popular guy, and people would show up and
Absolutely.
and buy. And so, are there a lot of different manufacturers now? Is the Holmes manufacturing company still going?
So they are owned by a company called Miller Industries. They're out of Ottawa, Tennessee, so about 20 minutes north of us if you're headed up on 75. They own a majority of the brands that were from the past. So they own the Holmes brand, they own the Vulcan brand, the one I was showing you earlier. So they're the primary producer these days. They're the ones that produce the large scale rotator trucks that you see a lot that can pick up stuff, and they pick up tractor trailers and all that. So they are the largest producer of tow truck equipment in the world, and it's still here in Chattanooga.
Okay. That is.
Over here, we've got some Weaver equipment, which was the competitor for Holmes at the time. So we've got a tire changing apparatus here, and then a couple of auto ambulances. These were another competitor to the twin boom. This would be something that would be taken up under and mounted under a axle, and you would chain it up and attach it to your car and pull.
So like a car dolly.
Yeah, more or less.
All except this one here was back when they had the straight axles in the front, and you could get up on both sides of the axle. Or it'd still work for a four-wheel drive pickup or something, I guess, that has the straight.
And then just a variety of other shop equipment that we have here on display, just some antique stuff here and there. Let's see. The Mack. We have a 1950 Model A Mack truck. Now, the Model A was not the one that everybody thinks of when they think of Mack. The Model B was the one that became extremely popular, was everywhere. This was kind of their learning curve model. This was the one that they were working up to the B in the 50s.
Okay.
The B is what really made Mack the big brand that it became.
Oh, it wasn't just the Bulldog on the front?
Well, people love that too, that's for sure. But this is a wonderful truck. This is also a fairly rare truck because the Model A was not terribly popular. It's one that you won't see very often. This is equipped with a W45 like the military wrecker. So it's a very large-scale recovery vehicle for the time. Ton of power, wonderfully restored, and I love this truck as well.
It's a beautiful truck. I mean, just the designs and the lines and all of that stuff on this truck is outrageously cool. And you have a little golf cart tow truck.
That was originally they would take to shows and drive around the shows and all that kind of. It's not operable right now, but it's a fun little novelty thing. So this is our 1932 Indiana. This is called a Barnx. This is essentially a custom wrecker, heavy wrecker, that was in operation in upstate New York, outside of Utica. I believe the company's still there. And it was what you would, I don't know how to explain it. It's a very custom heavy wrecker. So this was used for a variety of different jobs. And it had a power apparatus that was custom from the time. And it is just a wild looking truck to me.
It looks like the winch runs off of a PTO, off of the transmission. At least that's what it appears. And again, this is a Mack truck also. Yeah,
because this was the predecessor to Mack being the Indiana company, right? They ended up being bought out, I believe in the early 40s. I don't remember. But that was, again, a very, very interesting truck, because this tends to be very popular with kids too, because it's so odd.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of these kind of trucks, because this is really the only one with such a custom boom on the back.
Well, and it's just such a cool looking truck as far as the cab and the hood and everything else with it. It's a pretty neat truck. It's a really neat truck. So this was an Indiana, which Mack bought out and then became Mack.
I
this
believe
got the bulldog on the front too. Is that an?
And there was the White Automotive Company as well, which is involved in all that.
I think White became Freightliner at some point.
I believe so. I'm not entirely sure on the history of all that, but they are connected.
Okay.
So this here is one of our newer models we have. This is a 2002 International. This was actually recently donated to us by a gentleman. He had this truck. This has actually never seen service. This truck was painted and decorated for his wife, who passed from breast cancer.
Okay. It's a pink truck, by the way.
It's very
pink.
Come
down here, it's very pink.
And he had such a hard time holding on to it because, it reminded him of his wife, and so he donated it to us. It was in all kinds of shows all the way through the Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Baltimore, West Virginia. And it's got a custom Bill Bottoms bed, so that was one of the smaller producers of wrecking equipment, and just a wonderful truck. This is a very popular truck with women, obviously with the pink color, and it's just a very unique truck, and it's a wonderful thing. We were so happy to have this added to our collection.
Yeah, it's a beautiful truck.
And here is another one of our recent additions. This is a 1942 Indian dispatch tow cycle. Now, the misconception usually when you hear tow something is that it's pulling something.
Right.
In this case, it's not pulling anything. So this was a service vehicle. So if you had a service station and you had your car break down in your driveway, you would call the service station and say, hey, I need someone to come take a look at my car. They would drive out on one of these Indian motorcycles, equipped with a storage space in the back.
It looks kind of like the old ice cream cycles that back when I was a kid. You had your it's a tricycle. It's got two wheels in the back with a toolbox behind the seat, and so you get to wherever somebody was, and you'd have your tools in there, and it wasn't nearly as expensive to run as what your wrecker was.
And they would run it out to someone's house, and they would work on whatever it was to get your car running. And then they would say, okay, well, we're going to take it to the shop. And they would attach the motorcycle to the back of the vehicle that they were taking back to the shop, and they would tow the motorcycle back.
Oh, really?
So it would look, here's a picture of what was going on.
That is really cool. Yeah, they just had a bumper pole that, actually, it looks like Jaws that you just wind on down and attach to the old metal banded bumpers.
Yep, and you would drive it back to the service station. And these are very popular in the 40s. In fact, the most common drivers for these were actually women, because throughout the early 40s, you had World War II going on.
Right.
A lot of the men were overseas fighting, so women were the ones that were driving these.
Okay. Huh. Well, that's really cool. That's I've never seen one quite like that.
And that's really it for our downstairs gallery. That's our collection, and we're super proud of it. We've been making a lot of effort to modernize it and grow it, and really just make it a unique attraction here in Chattanooga that is slowly becoming less of a hidden gem and something that people are really stopping to see.
That is so cool. Like I said, I saw this on a website, and thought I'd have to come on by and take a look. I kind of like these smaller museums and things that people don't normally see, but I really have enjoyed this museum, and I so appreciate you taking your time and showing us all of these vehicles and talking about them. And hopefully we get some people come on through and take a look.
Absolutely, that would be great.
So, okay. Again, I appreciate your time, and I always finish out my podcast saying the world is full of wonder. People need to get out and explore and see some of this stuff. And everybody have an absolutely wonder-filled day.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?